Hi, I'm Sue Ratman, the Assistant Director of Family Support Services at the ARC Northern Chesapeake region. I want to share just a little bit about me. Family support is very personal to me. My son developed healthcare issues at 6 weeks of age. He was 3 years and 5 months old when he was diagnosed with a rare genetic syndrome. I wanted information and resources, so I have spent my 25-year career at the ARC Northern Chesapeake region working to provide information, resources, and supports to families. Hello, and thank you for joining Future Planning. You can't start planning too early. By now, you should have completed the first 5 recordings of IEP Breakdown. IEP Breakdown is designed to help parents understand the IEP process, special education law, how to successfully advocate for their child, and how to create a trajectory to help their child live the best life. This presentation is about resources and programs your child may benefit from that are outside the school system. By the time your child has reached IEP transition age, there are many things we suggest you have considered. In IEP Breakdown, there is an action plan that can be used for coordinating activities that need to occur for your child, but are not specific to special education or school. You can use that tool or something different as a guide as you participate in this presentation or in preparing for your child's future. Now let's get started with learning a little bit about the ARC NCR. Next slide. The ARC NCR was started in 1953 by a group of parents who wanted to improve the educational and vocational opportunities for their children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Those parents were active participants in getting programs started for their children. While many of those parents are no longer with us, their focus lives on to support not only the individual but the entire family and to advocate and educate in the community about why this is important. While as parents we continually want the best for our children, the difference between what was available then to now is huge. There is still a long way to go. But I think remembering where we came from is important to keep in mind as we continue to advocate for improved and increased opportunities for our children and family members. Next slide. I'm not going to explain our services, but want you to know that the majority of funding for most adult service agencies who work with individuals with ID and DD come from the Developmental Disability Administration, or DDA, through waiver programs. There's a large variety of programs available through DDA if you are determined to be eligible. An exception to receiving state DDA funding to operate is Family Support Services. FSS is funded by donations and grants. Next slide. Family Support Services. The tagline for the ARC is educate, advocate, and participate. FSS believes that this is what parents and individuals with different abilities need, and it's what we offer. The opportunities to educate themselves so they can effectively advocate for their child to be able to fully participate in the best life possible. Next slide. Now we're getting to the meat of our presentation. Life after school. You can't start planning too early. During this presentation, the topics we're going to briefly cover include know the facts, future planning, employment and life skills, guardianship and alternatives, Social Security, higher education, and a couple of other brief pieces of information. The goal is to introduce you to ideas and resources to consider when thinking about the future. It's a lot of information, but it's not meant to overwhelm you. It's meant to add context to the decisions along life's journeys. As you continue on the journey, you will want to obtain additional information. I have always equated life to a roadmap, a guide to get someplace you want to go. When you look at a map, there are numerous ways to get to the same place. You can take slower paced back roads, the highway, or make as many stops as you need. The important part is to have a direction and to focus on the path forward towards your destination. You don't even have to have a specific destination in mind, just the direction you want to head. The same could be said to apply to life. Next slide. You need to know the facts. As we communicate with each other, information that is shared can become misinterpreted and myths are born. While parents and the others we come in contact with are good supports and resources, it is important to ensure that the information you are using to make choices is accurate. There are 3 common ideas that I've heard repeatedly that parents believe are true, so I want to begin with them. Labels. As parents, we worry about our children having a label, but if you stop to think about it, we all have differing abilities. Each person has their areas of strength and need. Everyone needs support from someone else at some time in their life. Would you buy a house or a car without research or talking to a friend or a family member? Even when going on vacation, and hopefully things will open back up and we'll be able to do that soon, we ask our friends where they have gone, where they stayed, the best places to eat. Think about it. What would your label be? One of mine is persistent, but others might choose annoying. It's all subject to each individual's interpretation. We are an interdependent society, so needing help is not a bad thing. If a label gets the supports needed to be successful to have a worthwhile life. What do you think? There are going to be prejudiced people throughout life, and learning how to deal with them is a part of it. DDA. Hopefully, most of you are aware of the Developmental Disability Administration, or DDA. DDA is the primary long-term funding source for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Their funding pays for eligible individuals to participate in a variety of supports and service programs through waiver programs. There are currently 3 waiver programs with a variety of services under each program: Community Pathways, Community Supports, and Family Supports Waiver. DDA is not an entitlement. You have to apply and then determine to be eligible. This is a time when having a label can be helpful. Some parents think they need to wait to apply until it's close to the time for their child to exit school. This is not accurate. If you believe your child could be eligible, then apply now. DDA's Family Support Waiver Program has funding specifically set aside to support families of eligible individuals birth to 21 years old. The Family Supports Waiver has a large variety of services for families to consider based on their child's needs. So don't wait to apply. Apply now if you haven't already. The third is, my child can't work. Or if they work, they will lose their Social Security and medical assistance benefits. It's important to learn as much as possible about this so you make informed decisions. SSA and MA or Medicaid, they're the same thing, are very complicated issues. But you need to remember that SSA offers work incentives, which are designed to make work beneficial. Even if a person becomes employed full-time and makes over the income limits, the SSA cash benefit might stop, but there are ways to keep your Medicaid. There's more information later in the presentation. The bottom line is it does pay to work. With these 3 issues cleared up, let's get started on our plan. For me, everything begins with the plan. Next slide. Future planning, what is it? You will hear future planning mentioned frequently, but what does that mean? Future planning is about developing a guide for a person to lead a good life as independently as possible. Planning is part of how we make decisions on ways and options on how to deal with life's changes. Once again, it's never too early to start planning for the future. Starting early is actually the best option. The things your child learns at home and in school are what prepares them for adulthood and independence. There are numerous planning tools available, but I'm going to talk about what I believe are a couple of excellent choices. Next slide. Charting the Life Course. The Charting the Life Course framework was created by families to help individuals and families of all abilities develop a vision for a good life. Think about what they need to know and do, identify how to find and develop supports, and discover what it takes to get to the lives that they really want. Life Course materials are being used by DDA, other state service providers, and MSDE, so it could also be beneficial to become familiar with them now. During our lives, we will all face questions, challenges, and unknowns. We will search for answers that will help us along our path. Life Course was developed as a tool to assist families and individuals in creating a vision for the future across all of the lifespan. Life Course is about having different conversations, a different way of thinking, encouraging high expectations, having life experiences to move the trajectory in a desired direction, integrating multiple types of supports. It's also designed with a variety of life stages and domains to help you think about the questions to ask as well as choices, options, and life experiences to consider as you plot a course to a vision for a good life, so that it is easier to work with. Life stages, which are separate age categories, are set up using prenatal, infancy, early childhood, school age, transition, adulthood, and aging. And then within each one of these life stages are life domains, which are areas of life that all of us consider when planning for and experiencing our journey. A few examples would be daily life and employment, community living, and safety and security, but there are many more. Each one of these areas comes with a list of suggested questions to consider. So you could pick a life stage, say transition, and then a life domain, maybe employment, and just consider that time frame and area for planning. Or you could do a much broader picture. Life Course has multiple easy-to-use tools that you can print off and use as a format to begin the plan. It's up to you to determine how much or how little of the planning tools to use. Next slide. The ARC Center for Future Planning wants to support and encourage families to plan for the future. It offers free resources to help families, self-advocates, professionals, and others begin all of the aspects of future planning, including housing, finances, employment, support services, and more. Their website offers resources which include tips on how to start the process, see how others have planned, decide where to start, and you can view archived webinars. Build Your Plan is a tool that enables families to create accounts and to begin to build their plan within the center. It's an online-focused tool. You can create and save as you go along. So websites for Life Course and the ARC Future Planning are shown, along with two other resources to consider. Maryland ABLE accounts. And Maryland ABLE accounts are a new way to help individuals with disabilities save money and paid for qualified disability-related expenses without jeopardizing state or federal means-tested benefits, such as SSI or Medicaid. Saving for the future is always an issue. With Maryland ABLE, you can contribute up to $15,000 per year or more if the beneficiary is working for a wide range of disability-qualified expenses. The account's growth is tax-free, and your contributions could qualify for an income tax deduction on your Maryland state taxes. Best of all, you can make contributions up to a maximum account value of $500,000 over the life of the account. And you can save up to $100,000 before impacting SSI limits for cash benefits. Other federal means-tested benefits, such as Medicaid, housing, and food assistance, are not impacted by the balance of your ABLE account. Simply, able account balances are disregarded for the purpose of determining eligibility to receive or the amount of any assistance or benefits from Maryland's means-tested programs. The next is a guide developed by the Maryland Developmental Disability Council, Planning Now, a Future and Estates Planning Guide. It's a comprehensive, easy-to-use guide written specifically for families of children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Topics covered include future and estate planning, government financial and healthcare benefits, financial and healthcare decision-making, wills, trusts, and letters of intent, tax considerations, financial plannings, and numerous other things to consider as you work towards plans for the future. In this presentation, I'm not going to go into wills, the different types of trusts, life insurance, burial policies, or other financial assets. Information about all of them are included in the life planning tools provided. One important fact to remember, though, as you begin to plan is that Maryland Medicaid and SSI have an income asset limit of $2,000. It is vital that family members know they cannot leave money or assets or put a person with a differing abilities name on an asset, or it could impact their benefits. ABLE Act is the exception to this. There are ways for individuals to receive the use of those funds without negatively affecting their benefits. The different options available can be from very low cost up to thousands of dollars. You should carefully investigate each one. Next slide, employment and life skills. Work is a part of life, whether it's paid or not. It could be a job outside the home or one of the many jobs it takes to keep a household running. While you may think you have years before you need to worry about your child working, I hope some of the information mentioned will make you rethink that idea. Job developers, job coaches, and employment trainers were good resources of information for me and made me realize I know less than I thought. My training started with Maryland is an employment state. So what does that mean and why is it so important? Employment First is a national movement and a framework for systems change that is centered on the premise that all citizens, including individuals with significant disabilities, are capable of full participation in integrated employment and community life. Publicly financed systems are urged to align policies, service delivery practice, and reimbursement structures to commit to integrated employment as the priority for publicly funded services for youth and adults with significant disabilities. Under the Employment First approach, community-based integrated employment is to be the first option for services for youth and adults with significant disabilities. This means that DDA believes all people with developmental disabilities can work and contribute to the community when given the opportunity, training, and supports that build on their strengths. Employment will be the first option considered for all people of working age who receive DDA services. For additional information, you can go to the link provided. Next slide. So whether you think your child can work or not, the state says it will be the first option considered. So let's think about the very critical life skills needed to be successful in the community. We can add to this the idea that while school is an entitlement, adult services is based on eligibility, and adult providers can say no. Keeping these ideas in mind when planning is valuable. After the last year many families have had with school being closed and using virtual education, I hate to even make this next statement, but it is true. As parents, we are all the first teachers. Children learn from their family, whether it's direct instruction or mimicking family members' actions. Work can be a vague concept, but many of the key elements to being employable are also critical life skills. We need to remember that everyone has abilities. They just might not be as obvious as others. Think about it. Remember, what was your first job at home or outside the house? Think about what it taught you. You probably learned responsibilities, being part of a team, which at that time could have been your family. Expectation that the job needed to be done within certain guidelines. Clear boundaries for the amount of time that you had. Independence, the ability to follow through on a task. How to take feedback. I did a good job, or I need to recheck my work. Social skills. How to accept the task. Ask questions if you don't understand, and ask for help. You develop a willingness to learn, motivation. Maybe the concept of money. Did you get an allowance? Does your child have a job? Whether it is whatever it is, the one thing you can't do is the task for them. That teaches an entirely different lesson. We want to develop and build on skills, not teach how to avoid tasks. One of the trainers asked me a question that really made me stop and think. I would like for you to think about what your answer would be. What would you hire your child to do if you were the employer? So where do we go from here? Develop a job they can do at home. Think about the different skills they need to begin to develop. Children learn differently and in a variety of time frames, so starting early is important. What could be part of the IEP? One of the key skills to work towards is self-advocacy. Children need to learn to understand their abilities and needs. How do they advocate for themselves if they don't know what they struggle with? Self-advocacy can be taught through role play, decision-making, discussions of choices, learning the steps, practicing how to ask for help, dealing with consequences. You could offer the opportunity to participate in their IEP meeting. When you go to the doctors, let the child do the talking. When you go out to eat, let them order their meal and ask for refills. All of the things that you could think of as you go through life could be learning experiences. Learning how to express abilities or needs to an employer is vital. It doesn't have to be negative. Some examples would be to consider an individual diagnosed with ADHD. To their employer, they could say, I have a lot of energy and can do well at jobs where I can move around. Someone that maybe has some memory issues. I can do the job well, and if I had clear expectations and a task list, I would be a good employee, and that would be a valuable support to me. But they need to know what their sensory needs are, what kind of environment, smell, touch, special boundaries do they need? Start at home and in school. What do you need to be successful? What do you find really helps? Talk about why you work. What motivates them? Is it independence, money, self-worth? Practice receiving negative feedback. What is the difference between school and work? At work, you can be fired, so people need to understand how to take negative comments and to be able to deal with that and make changes in whatever the issue might be at work. As your child's abilities increase in the age, consider a social networking map. List everyone you know and where they work. Is there an opportunity for your child to volunteer, even if it's only for an hour each week? This would allow them to start in a more friendly environment. And then with time and independence, the supports could fade, and hopefully the opportunity to grow would continue. But sometimes growth comes with failure. There's a saying I heard years ago that has stayed with me. If you aim for the moon, even if you miss, you will land among the stars. If you aim for nothing, you will not be disappointed. High expectations make a difference. What is the goal, your objective, and what outcome do you want? Next slide. The PACER Center is a great resource. It has easy-to-read information, fact sheets, stories, and information that could be used throughout life. But there are some specific to transition and life and employment skills. There's also a variety of skills books. In their search bar, put in skills for independent living, and there's a list of different guides that will come up. There's a guide for employment skills on their website. They also have something called Youth for Youth, and depending on your child's age, it might be relevant for them, but either way, it's a good learning tool for parents. Okay, these are additional resources. When you're closer to transition, the first 3 websites could be helpful. ONET has job skills by job salary range and an outlook for the future. Career One Stop, videos about unemployment. Ask Jan, Job Accommodations Network, where you can enter your child's diagnosis and the usual challenges with potential accommodations would be shown. Maryland Learning Links is another one of those resources that is good for a variety of areas of life, but would be especially helpful when we look at transition. Next slide. Hopefully most of you are already aware of the Maryland Department of Rehabilitation Services, or DORS. DORS is a state agency with programs and services that help people with significant disabilities become successfully employed. Students with a wide variety of significant physical, emotional, cognitive, sensory, and learning disabilities may qualify for DORS services. DORS services are typically short-term. If you're in a special education program, i.e., you have an IEP to receive accommodations in school, or have a 504 plan or significant health conditions, you may qualify or be eligible for DORS services. DORS can begin working with students while they are still in high school as early as age 14. It's called the DORS Pre-Employment Transition Services, or PRES. Please refer to their website for additional information about transition services and to apply for PRES if you haven't already done so. Next slide. Preparing for age 18. The day on which a person turns 18 is generally recognized as a significant milestone. You can legally vote, join the military, leave home, marry the person of your choice, and other options. The day an individual with intellectual or developmental disabilities attains 18, they are considered under the law an adult capable to make decisions for themselves and whose parents no longer have the legal authority to make decisions on his or her behalf. For many parents, this is a scary idea. Some individuals with IDD have the capacity to make responsible decisions, while others do not. But this is also true of individuals that do not have a disability. It's important to evaluate all of your options based on your experience and knowledge of your child's IDD to determine exactly what may be the appropriate decision-making authority for them. Age 18 is frightening, so let's make it less stressful by planning and considering the options early. There are some things mentioned that are good ideas for parents to do for themselves, which would be a good learning experience to base future decisions on. Capacity is a legal term you're going to see when researching this topic. It's complicated, but a very simple explanation is that the person's ability to make a decision, such as sign a power of attorney, healthcare documents, Hipaa Agreements. Next slide. There are several options that we're going to review. Guardianship, signed releases, advanced directives, power of attorney, supported decision-making, and surrogate decision-making. Next slide. Healthcare seems to be the biggest concern that parents have as their child moves into adulthood. Typically, parents have been the primary decision maker, and being told you can no longer have access to healthcare information or the authority to make decisions is terrifying. In an effort to be helpful, unfortunately, many healthcare providers recommend guardianship as the answer, but they do not necessarily have specific knowledge of other options. Guardianship involves the courts, an attorney for the people requesting guardianship, and an attorney for the individual. If guardianship is appointed, the individual is considered to be incapacitated and their fundamental rights are removed from them. Removing a guardianship can be very difficult. Before making a decision, parents should ask themselves if the child can make decisions with fully or partially participating in their rights, given reasonable or even extreme accommodations. If the answer is yes or even maybe, then considering exploring less restrictive alternatives is an option. In guardianship matters, a court assumes jurisdiction over the disabled person to protect that person who, because of illness or other disability, is unable to care for himself or herself. Thus, the court is actually the guardian. The court appoints a guardian to serve as the court's agent to carry out the court's responsibilities. Make sure you read the various rules and requirements of guardians for additional important information with this in mind. Guardianship can cost thousands of dollars and has a lifelong impact. It is also important to consider any personal and legal ramifications this could have for you. The courts maintain involvement and request annual reporting on your duties as a guardian. They also maintain the final decision-making in life-ending issues. You also need to consider that what happens to the person when you are gone who would assume guardianship. Guardianship doesn't stop a person from giving away money, engaging in risky behaviors, getting arrested, being injured, or being taken advantage of in other ways. The best way to prevent people from being taken advantage of is to regularly talk to them about safe choices, healthy relationships, and recognizing bad situations. It's never too early to start. There are alternatives to consider. Next slide. An individual with IDD can sign a release of information or other authorization form allowing parents access to some or all of their educational, medical, and other records. Schools already do this. Medical providers have forms that patients can sign allowing others the ability to speak with medical providers and access some or all of their medical records. So an example of this would be a Hipaa release. Next slide. Power of attorney is a legal document that allows someone to act on your behalf. Power of attorneys can be limited or general, can take effect immediately, or take effect after a specific set of circumstances. In other words, they can be customized to meet the needs of the person. The person does need to be able to understand the document, which powers are being granted, and which property is affected by the power granted. In many cases, a POA is completed for financial reasons. And in many cases, individuals with IDD do not have much in the way of finances, so it might make it something that is not necessary. But this is a document parents could consider having for themselves. If you were incapable of making financial decisions for yourself, who would you trust to do this for you? Next slide. While I'm providing templates, and you are not required to have an attorney complete the POA, this is an important document to carefully review. It also needs to be notarized. Here's some links to free forms. Next slide. This resource provides some additional information to consider if you decide to move forward and become a POA and what your responsibilities are. Next slide. Advanced medical directives are a type of medical power of attorney. Once again, something we should all have completed. Advanced directives are legal documents that will allow you to choose someone to make health care decisions for you in the event you are unable to do so for yourself. And also, if you choose to outline what end-of-life treatments you do or do not want to undergo. There are 3 sections in the state's model advanced directive form, which may be completed fully or partially, meaning you may just appoint a decision maker or just document your treatment options, or you can do both. If you decide to name someone to act on your behalf, should you become incapacitated, that person named is called a healthcare agent. He or she can make any decision authorized in the document. A guardian of person may not be required if there isn't a healthcare agent, unless the agent does not have power to make the specific medical decision. Section 1 of the Advanced Directive Form states your selections and outlines the authority given to the healthcare agent. Section 2 of the state form enables you to communicate your wishes on what types of treatments you wish to receive, as well as the treatments you do not want to have. This section is referred to as a living will. Types of treatments could include feeding tubes, ventilators, and pain medications. Again, no lawyer is needed, but you do need to have a witness and a notary public. Some great resources for this are shown on the next slide. You have a guide, the Maryland Advanced Directive Planning for Future Healthcare Decisions. So this includes the Advanced Directive form, but it also comes with instructions of what things to consider and the impact of those decisions. Next slide. This is the one that could work best if you've been considering guardianship. Surrogate decision making. A surrogate decision maker and the documents we have discussed so far, need for the person to have a capacity to understand the decisions they have made when signing the document. Being a surrogate decision maker is the option in circumstances where an individual is not able to make healthcare decisions personally. And this is as determined by 2 physicians and has not picked a healthcare agent, or the healthcare agent is not available. Then Maryland law allows for surrogate decision making. The surrogate decision maker can make healthcare decisions related to the duties and limits imposed by law. You will need 2 physician statements. While there is no format for the doctor's certification, it should include that the medical professional know the person as a patient, are aware of their disability, and that they are not competent to execute an advanced directive and therefore qualified to have a surrogate decision maker on their behalf. Maryland's Healthcare Decision Act allows relatives or close friends of an incapacitated person to consent to certain medical procedures. The statute also provides the surrogate the ability to withhold or withdraw life-sustaining procedures without first obtaining a guardianship under certain circumstances. The statute defines the priority of surrogate decision makers and protocols to be followed. Below is the link for COMAR, and next slide is additional surrogate decision maker information. You might want to consider putting together a packet for future use with the first 3 articles listed below, and even 2 physicians' statements to take with you on healthcare visits after your child turns 18. Regardless of which one of the options you are considering, this is important information for you to know and have available. Not every healthcare professional you see will have the same knowledge. Below are copies of the statutes that are related to Healthcare Decisions Act and surrogate decision making for you to have. The next slide. In addition, the People's Law Library is an excellent resource for a variety of things, but that is the link about guardianship and the alternatives. There is also a handbook on Maryland law that was written about guardianship and its alternatives. And the Autism Self-Advocacy Network has an easy-to-read publication on the right to make choices, and this is something you could use with a family member as a learning tool. Next slide. There is a nationwide movement towards supported decision-making. Maryland has not yet considered legislation on this concept, but there are groups working to move this idea forward into the legislature. Supported decision-making allows the person to keep their decision-making authority without appointing a substitute decision-maker. People use trusted friends, family makers, and professionals who understand the situation and choices they face. The same way many of us go to others for help and support when we need. If you're interested in learning more about this concept, the resources there for the National Resource Center on Supported Decision-Making. Next slide. Higher education. As parents and young adults, there's frequently an interest in continuing on to college. If this is part of the future plan, it is important to know that colleges don't fall under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. So the supports and services available could be substantially different. They also don't typically provide 504 plans the same way high schools do. Although colleges do provide accommodations to students who are eligible under ADA, there may also be other support services available for a fee. If part of what you're worried about is how you're going to afford the cost of college, then learning about the community college tuition waiver for students with disabilities receiving SSI or SSDI is a resource for you to check out. There would also be the possibility that doors could contribute towards the cost of college if it's directly related to employment. Next slide. This slide includes some slides which could be, or actually some websites, which could be useful when planning for college. The National Center for College Students with Disabilities is the only federally funded national center in the U.S. for college and graduate students with any type of disability, chronic health condition, or mental or emotional illnesses. They have a vast array of free information for students, parents, families, high school and college faculty on their website. Understood.org is another really good site to check out. This is a link to a specific article about leaving high school and planning for college, but Understood.org has a variety of other good materials on it that might be of value to you. Next slide. Social Security. Social Security is massive and challenging to understand, especially if you are trying to learn it all at one time. Slowly building up an understanding of how it works over time is probably the best idea. First, you need to know that Social Security has its own definition of disability, which must be met in order to collect benefits. There are also two distinctly different programs. It's important to know which program benefits are being collected because there are different guidelines for each one. The Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, program provides monthly payments to adults and children with a disability or blindness and who have income and resources below specific limits. A parent's income is included up to the age of 18. At 18, an individual is considered to be an adult and can apply solely based on their income. In Maryland, if you do not already have medical assistance, you may be eligible to obtain it with SSI. This doesn't mean you must have both. You can maintain each separately. SSI payments can also be made to individuals 65 and older without disabilities who meet the financial limits. People who have worked long enough may also be eligible to receive Social Security, disability, or retirement benefits. Those benefits can be higher than the SSI cash benefit, which has a cap to it. This benefit is based on quarters of work required in order for the person to be eligible to collect. The quarters of work needed is different for an individual that has, according to Social Security, a disability. There is also the potential for an individual who meets SSA disability criteria to collect under a parent who is receiving benefits. In addition, you can collect SSI at the same time as this other benefit, but remember that SSI has a cap on the amount of the cash benefit. Find out if you're eligible to receive Social Security disability benefits or Social Security retirement benefits. There's information at the below link. Next slide. Don't wait to apply if you think you might be eligible, but make sure you keep track of everything you send to SSA and maintain a log on who and when you speak with an SSA representative and what they tell you. It's best to go to the website and review the documents needed before you begin the application. Next slide. In the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned it pays to work. SSA wants for people to be employed. It's financially beneficial. Remember, there's a cap on your SSI benefits. You would have to make double that benefit amount before your SSI cash benefit would stop. It could be reduced as your earnings grow, but your income is still higher. You would also be earning work quarters, which go towards collecting the other benefit option, which does not have the same benefit cap to it. SSA has created a document that was developed specifically to explain the many work incentives available under SSI and SSDI, or Social Security disability. This guide is updated annually and is located on SSA's website. Not working is guaranteed poverty, but it's not just about the money, but the self-worth and connections to the community, relationships, and the independence it provides. The Red Book, a summary guide to employment supports for individuals with disabilities under Social Security, disability insurance, and supplemental security income, is the book that I mentioned above, and this is where you can find it. It is specific to work and how work is affected, or how work affects benefits. Next slide. Selective Service. Do you have to register if you have a disability? Remember, different programs have different criteria to be considered as having a disability. On January 1st, 2002, a law became effective in which a person age 18 through 25 who is required to register with Selective Service under federal law and who applies for a state driver's license or renewal, permit, or state ID card is automatically registered with the Selective Service. So if your family member has one of these, then it's one less job that you have to do. For more information, check out their website. The last slide is passport. A family I worked with has encountered barriers to obtaining the passport for their adult son with significant disabilities. This government program is telling him that he has to spend the money to obtain guardianship in order to obtain a passport. But as he and I discussed, if he spends the money for guardianship, he doesn't have the money to take the trip. So the best option we've been able to determine is to apply for one early when he was still younger, and if you think you might be able to travel out of the country. If this is something that could be in your family's future, you might want to think about it now. Next slide. Thank you for listening. This has been a long presentation filled with what we believe is valuable information. We hope you take the time to check out the resources included. If you have additional questions or want to offer comments, please contact fss@arcncr.org. Thank you.